ad costs are increasing, and they're going to increase continually until election year in the US. The best thing you can do at this particular time is, if you are running ads and you're trying to put that quirk that we might have in New Zealand or the quirk that we have in Australia, trying to be a bit more sarcastic, you can offend a lot of Americans. They just simply won't get it. You can save a lot of money by doing a simple setup inside your ads manager and adding in your ABN, because you are going to get charged tax if you don't. And the second thing is, make sure you... Hi, I'm Kerry Fitzgibbon, an ADHD fempreneur, multiple seven-figure business owner, and Facebook marketing ninja. Together, let's unleash AI-powered Facebook marketing to take your business from best-kept secret to the top of your niche and beyond. Welcome to this week's episode, where we are going to be covering the difference between Australia, New Zealand, and the US when it comes to advertising, and specifically advertising on Facebook and Instagram. Of course, there are many differences between, people from the US, people from Australia, us Kiwis. I'm actually Kiwi living in Australia, and it's not just our accents, but what can happen is, and especially in advertising, it can make a massive difference if, let's just say, you're running ads here in Australia to the US market, or if the US market is running ads to Australia or New Zealand and whatnot. There's some little differences or little things that can make quite a difference to whether your ads will get results or not. So I just want to touch on, I guess, some of the things that you need to be aware of. So let's just say you are in Australia or in New Zealand and you're running ads to the US, what sorts of things you need to be aware of. If you are in the US and you are running ads to Australia and New Zealand, what sorts of things you need to be aware of. And if you are listening, if you're a small business owner, and let's just say, there's a lot of Americans and American coaches and so on that do advertise to Australia and New Zealand. And they advertise their services, they advertise their training courses, and so on. And if you do sign up to be coached by, let's just say, an American, and if you are a small business owner in Australia or New Zealand, and you are wanting to run ads or market to the Australian or New Zealand market, and you are taking advice, let's just say, from someone in the States, the things that you need to watch out for, because it is very, very different when it comes to marketing, the way we speak, the targeting, and so on. Let's talk about the first difference, right? The first difference is the size of the different countries, okay? So the Australian market is much smaller than the US market, okay? And the New Zealand market is obviously smaller still. So what this means, and I'll just give you an example of this, if you take the topic small business owner, okay, so when we're looking up interests, our target audience and everything inside Facebook, and let's just say we look at small business owner. In the US, you have an audience over 4.4 million to over 5 million, okay? So if you were a business and you wanted to target small business owners, in the US, if you were targeting small business owners, there'd be between 4 to 5 million small business owners that you can target inside Meta, inside Facebook, okay? Whereas in Australian, if you use those keywords, small business owner, well, the audience is between 300 and nearly 400,000 people. So 322,600 to 379,500 in the Australian audience. So what that means is there's simply not a large enough audience for the Facebook algorithm to quickly and cheaply find your target market. Your ads will stay in learning mode a lot longer. So I'm going to take a step back here for a moment. So when we're running ads inside the platform, the Meta platform, initially when we start running those ads, and let's just say we're running those ads for a purchase or for a sale or some, some sales type of, I guess, campaign. So if we're running those ads, and let's just go to a purchase, right? So we want people to buy our stuff. So we're running those ads. Facebook will initially go into learning mode. So it needs to learn, all right, it needs to learn and optimize. Now, if you are running a sales campaign, so for a purchase or a completed registration, if you're running, webinars, or for a lead, if you're getting leads and so on, you need 50 of them for Facebook to fully optimize. And that's 50 within a 7-day period. So in the meantime, Facebook will be in learning mode. In Australia and New Zealand, it will stay in learning mode a lot longer because quite often it's harder to get that 50 purchases in a 7-day period. So it will continue in learning mode. What that can actually mean, though, is that it kind of is a bit scary. If you're an Australian business owner or a New Zealand business owner and you're advertising on Facebook and you're looking at your ads and you're seeing that they're consistently in learning mode, then you're quite often trying to continue to adjust them to get them out of learning mode. But the more you adjust them, the more they stay in learning mode, right? So you actually have to be a little bit more patient. So when you're advertising to Australian and New Zealand market and you're Australian and New Zealand business owner, you need to be a little bit more patient because there's a smaller pool, right? And, a smaller group to select from. So therefore your ads won't optimize as quickly. And like I said, they'll stay in learning mode. The other thing to look for here is if you are advertising to both the US and the Australian market at the same time, then you need to understand that the American campaign to the American market will come out of learning mode possibly a lot quicker. It's a lot bigger, so it's easier for Facebook to test the market and optimize a lot quicker. So difference is size. So that's the first difference, and it can be quite significant when it comes to running ads. Difference number 2 is there's some real cultural differences between the US and Australia and New Zealand. Now, when you think about it, okay, is we are a lot more cynical. We don't trust quite as easily is one thing, okay? And our sense of humor tends to be towards the sarcastic side, which, to be honest, the Americans don't typically get our sense of humor. I don't know whether you guys have spoken to many Americans lately. I have a Kiwi sense of humor. Mine's really dry, and they just don't necessarily get that I'm being funny, right? And same with Australians, with the sarcasticness, they don't necessarily get it. So if you are running ads and you're trying to put that quirk that we might have in New Zealand or the quirk that we have in Australia, trying to be a bit more sarcastic and that, you can probably offend a lot of Americans, right? They just simply won't get it. Okay. And, but it can be the other way around as well. What we find here in Australia and New Zealand especially is that our BS meters are definitely turned on to a much higher degree. We can generally sense bullshit. We don't really like being overly sold to either. Like, we prefer to, have the gradual sale rather than the attack sale as well. And we don't like overhype anywhere near as much. And in fact, a lot of the US ads, they don't work here because they're overhyped and they'll fall flat down under here, okay? So what that means for you when you're advertising is to really think about who your target audience is. Now, if you are, listening to some of the coaches and the consultants and that are advertising here in Australia and in New Zealand, and they're telling you, the different types of hooks and calls to actions and the way that you need to sell and so on, and you listen to them and do that, you'll probably find that it won't work as well. The opposite is true. If you are advertising to the American market and you are a coach and consultant, you need to sell harder than you typically do, okay? I've held lots of webinars and events in the US, and I tend to find that I actually have to really spell it out and tell people that I'm actually selling to them in order for them to buy. And in fact, the first few times I was running events in the US, I made no sales at all. And I spoke to a few people about this saying, listen, this is exactly the same event that I hold in Australia and that I hold in New Zealand, and it works really, really well, and I make lots of sales and it converts fantastically. Why didn't it? And I've had people say, oh, wait a minute, did you make an offer? Were you actually selling something? And I'm like, what? You couldn't tell? And they're like, oh, no, it just sounded like you were having a casual conversation saying, yeah, I've got this thing over here. Why don't you just pick it up? Whereas it wasn't quite, it wasn't as hard a sell as what the US is used to. So just understand that, in your copy, the cultural differences, the difference in words and so on, if you think about it, even like in some of the words that we say, for instance, if you're talking about you're selling some thongs here in Australia and you're, in America, well, they might think you're talking about a G-string over there, okay? So a thong in America is what we would call a G-string, and a G-string over here is something you play with your guitar, I guess, and a thong over here in Australia is something you put on your foot, and in New Zealand, it's a jandal, and we would put a thong. So it can be very, very confusing, right? So be aware of those different types of cultural quirks and whatnot, because you could end up selling the wrong thing, or people want to buy the wrong thing for you, or you could end up with the wrong audience as well. So if you're using US style copy in your ads, you'll find that your conversion rates, and especially if you're using them to target Australian, New Zealand business owners, you'll find that your conversion rates will be possibly much lower than they should be. And, if you are trying to do that overhype American type style, if I've got any Americans, it's great for you guys. It's less so over here. But what can happen is, it actually is a business owner and you're trying to use those strategies, it can actually ruin your reputation, okay, if you say the wrong thing and so on. And I want to give you a classic example of a big mistake that I made many years ago. And, I didn't think anything of it at all, okay? So I had a sale, and I had a clearance sale on my Marathon Girl running tops. And so I've got a sportswear brand of clothing. It's called Marathon Girl. It's an international sportswear brand. And I was having a clearance on my white running tops. So I know enough to call them tanks over in the States. So they're marathon running, singlets or T-shirts or running tops here in Australia and New Zealand and most of the world. And in the States, when I advertise them as, marathon running tank tops. But I was having this clearance on my white ones. So I had, white only, because it was only the clearance on the white running tops. So I had, white only Marathon Girl running tops, clearance sale, as kind of the wording. That was give or take what the wording was on the ad. And then I left it to run. And then I started getting all this abuse on my ads, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And I'm seeing it ping, ping, ping coming through and messages on my page and so on. And I'm like, what the hell's happening? And then I went back and I looked at the comments, and they thought that I was pointing out that it was for white people. So they thought I was being racist. And I, of course, wasn't. And someone actually made a really nice suggestion and said to me, why don't you put white coloured Marathon Girl tops, which I didn't think I needed to, but that was a big mistake. I learned from it. I did get a lot of engagement from the ad. I mean, I would have thought that the picture would have spoke 1,000 words in that. But again, it was a major cultural difference. It was a major thing that happened. And so be aware of those little things. And sometimes when you're running campaigns, you need to look at, okay, this ad is to Australia, New Zealand audience. All right, this is the lingo I'm going to use. I can put some quirks in it. I can maybe be a bit more sarcastic. I can have a bit of a dry sense of humor in it, and especially, maybe in some of your videos and so on. And then do a little bit more hyped up one and so on for the US audience. So watch your copy and so on as well. What are the things to look out for? And this is not necessarily ads, but we'll get back to those in a second. It's just while I'm thinking of this, is email marketing. So if you are doing email marketing around the world, there are some email regulations that you need to be aware of as well. So in the States, in the States, if someone lands on your website, there is actually a bit of software where you can grab their email address and so on. Okay. Now, in the States, you can collect email addresses, and people do not necessarily have to opt in to give you permission to collect email addresses, right? That's the I guess the summary of it. There's probably a lot more detail to that, but in the States, you can collect email addresses without people necessarily opting in and giving you permission, but you have to allow them, if you send emails out to them, you have to be able to provide an unsubscribe. So like I said, there's software out there that when people come to your website in the States, you can collect the email addresses, send out an email to those people, but you have to provide an unsubscribe. Whereas in other countries, you can't do that. You have to actually get the opt-in, right? So you have to, and I believe that's the same in Australia and New Zealand and definitely the UK, you have to get people to opt in. So that means, they have to sign in, give you their email addresses, and essentially tick a tick box to say you have permission to send them an email. So that's an opt-in. So those are a little bit of differences there because, of course, if you are in the States and you try and do, the less regulated way of just collecting the email addresses in other countries, you could actually have a big problem with your email provider and get, blacklisted, and something to that you obviously, if you're email marketing here in Australia, and that you could look at other ways that you could have a separate maybe landing page, separate things in the States that you can use the regulations, which are a little bit more lax as well. So that's your email regulations, and there's quite a bit of differences between the different countries and so on. Definitely make sure that you do look those things up and comply to whichever country that you're advertising to. So other things to watch out for between, different cultures, Australia, New Zealand, because Australia, New Zealand, the US and so on, is language differences. And I don't know whether you guys have ever travelled overseas much. I loved it in the States. No one understood me. That was probably the first thing, but they just kept wanting me to talk. Loved my language. And any Kiwi or Australian that goes to the States, they love to hear us talk, even more than they love to hear themselves talk. All right. And it's like, just say, well, we know over in Kiwis coming to Australia, everyone says, say fish and chips, say six, and so on. But in the States, they just want you to say anything, right? So there are, obviously language differences. One of the things that if you are advertising and using video to the US market, and especially if you're a Kiwi, you have to slow down. Slow down and pronounce your words correctly. One of the things that I find quite uncomfortable, but have got a little bit more used to it, is when I'm holding I'm speaking at an event or holding a webinar or being invited on a podcast and it's to the US audience, I have to literally almost put a 0.5 slow down on my voice, listen to myself in half mode, right? When I'm listening to Americans, I'm 1.5 is the speed that I usually listen to. So just think about that when you're doing video. Which country are you speaking to? If it's American and you're Australian or Kiwi, you might want to slow it down just slightly so that they can understand you. And then also there are some differences in obviously languages as well. So I named one before, like thong and thong. There's quite a bit of a difference there. One's a G-string or an underpant, and one's something you put on your foot. There is the other thing actually we use a lot in ads is the words. There are, you can make a lot of money, for instance, or you can build, so you make a lot of money, lose a lot of weight. So we use lots and a lot. Australia, New Zealand, we use heaps to, talk about a lot of things. And in the US, it's tons, all right? So, and you'll see it a lot in the ads that, and you can make tons of money, you can get tons of leads, you can get tons of traffic and so on. Whereas over here, we use lots and heaps. Now, this is my take on those particular words. If you're going to describe, a lot of things, I would probably go towards tons, because at least, here in Australia and in New Zealand, we understand what a ton is, and we understand tons of something is a big amount, right? But if you try and do a lot or heaps as the words to describe a big amount, in the States, they won't understand what you're talking about. Okay, so if you're going to err on the side of caution there and you are advertising to the States and you want to describe a big amount of something, then use tons. It's just much easier doing it that way. So other things to think about when we're advertising in Meta is what's happening in the world. So what's happening in the world can certainly impact our campaigns. So to just give you an example, right now is election year in the US. So election year means that the political parties are spending a ton of money on ads, and they're flooding Meta with ads. Now, keep in mind, political parties don't necessarily have specific audiences that they target. So it doesn't matter in what niche that you're in, they are running ads to every single person in the States, and they're spending so much insane amount of money that it will impact our ads over here. Because keep in mind, Facebook essentially is an auction, right? It's based on kind of an auction. There's a few other bits and pieces to it, but let's put it this way. If you are targeting mum and dad audiences here in Australia, and another brand or company is targeting exactly the same audience, they are spending more on that audience than you are. It's like a bid in auction type of situation. They will win. He who has the most money to spend on the audience, there's a few other factors, but as long as they've got their creative and their ad right and whatever else, will possibly win the auction. So the price of that audience, the price to get to that audience goes up. So what that means for us small business owners is that if you've got political parties, and it doesn't matter if they're in the US, they are after the mums and dads audiences, they're after, the audience that you want to target. If they're doing that, they're spending a lot of money. They are the prices are going up because of the spend, right? Supply, demand. So what you'll find this year and at this particular point in time, the second quarter, this is called second quarter of the year, is that ad costs are possibly increasing, and they're going to increase continually until obviously the election happens. After the election happens, well, then we're going into the third and fourth quarter, right? Which is around about, towards the end of the year, it's generally the fourth quarter actually, where the September, October, November, sort of more October, November. So we've got Halloween, we've got Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and then going into Christmas, is that ad prices will increase as well. So if you've been ticking along and you've been running ads inside Facebook and your cost per acquisition is, let's just say $5, let's just say that as, whatever it is you're selling is $5, and it's been ticking along between $3 and $5 for, let's say, months and months and months and months, or even for the last year and so on. And then all of a sudden you see a spike, and you're starting to see a spike this year, and it's all of a sudden gone to $6, $7, $8, $9 to get a sale. That's why, right? It's the outside influences, like the election in the US right now. So it will be impacting things. What I suggest you do with this one, we can't do anything about it, okay? We can't do anything about it. We can't say stop the election so I can run my ads. You can run off to perhaps another channel and advertise on another channel, but they're there as well. So the best thing you can do at this particular time is to run like your video view top of the funnel ads. Start really collect your list. So if you do your collect a email address or a messenger subscriber, so you want to run top of funnel video view ads, and then you kind of middle of funnel list building ads, building your database, and then using your database to sell, because it is cheaper to run ads to get people to watch a video and get people to give you the information than it is to get the sale as such. So if you're starting to see the prices creep up and it's starting to become non-viable for you to run sales campaigns or for you to actually sell specifically on Facebook or Instagram, then you need to look at more top of the funnel branding stuff that costs a lot less. So my advice is switch to video view campaigns to warm people up and start building that list through emails or messenger subscribers. Offer something that's high perceived value to your audience and low cost of delivery to you. One of the things that works really, really well is running, something like a giveaway where you're giving away your product or service in exchange for, email address, messenger subscriber, and maybe phone number as well. So that's probably the best thing to do if you're noticing that, because it's probably going to be a rough ride in terms of prices increasing for the next few months. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping that won't happen to everyone, and it might not happen in certain industries and so on, but that's what we have been noticing, and that's, across the board, and it pretty much happens every election as well. So that's, some of the things that you need to be looking out for when you're running campaigns. Which country are you running campaigns for? Are you running ads to the US? Are you running, the ads to Australia and New Zealand? Because the other thing that you might want to look at here as well is separating your audiences. So if you are a business owner and you are running ads to Australia, New Zealand, and the US, my suggestion to you is if you put them all in one audience, you'll find that Facebook will favour the biggest, so it'll favour the US. So it means your Australian and New Zealand people won't see your ad necessarily, or very few of them. So my suggestion would be to run a campaign with an ad set to the US, another ad set to Australia, New Zealand. You can combine those two and then put a manual budget optimization on it. So if you don't understand that, that's all cool. Come to my masterclass. I'll put the link in the show notes. My Facebook and AI masterclass, I go into more details on this stuff, but it's really, really important stuff that you need to know when you are running ads inside Facebook. You have campaign budget optimization, which is where you let Facebook spend to any audience, or you can manually do it yourself where you allocate money to each audience. If you're doing international, separate the countries, allocate manual budget to each one so that it gets a fair distribution is pretty much what I would suggest there. So, your Australian and New Zealand audience definitely get to see your ads as well. And one more super, super important things that will save you a lot of money. One that most people do not know is you can save a lot of money by doing a simple setup inside your ads manager and adding in your ABN, because you are going to get charged tax if you don't. Not tax from here that you can necessarily claim, but you will get charged the tax on top of your ad costs if you haven't got your ABN in there. So if you haven't got, go check now in your ads manager, have you got your ABN in there? If you're in New Zealand, is it your New Zealand business number? If you've got them, you'll save money on ads. That's one. And the second thing is if you're setting up an ad campaign for the very first time, put your ABN in or your tax number. Number two is make sure you set up the ad account in the right dollars. Make sure you set it up. If you're in Australia, make sure you select Australian dollars, in New Zealand, New Zealand dollars, and the US, US dollars, because you can't change it. There's no way to change it. So if you set up your ad account and you've selected the wrong currency, and you're running ads and you're being charged in US dollars, it's going to be more expensive. If you want to change it to the right currency, you have to set up a brand new ad account. All right? So just set it up from the start the right way, and you'll save a lot of money. And whatever you do, do not ask ChatGPT to specifically write an ad for an Australian audience. I just want to give you an example of this, and we got ChatGPT to write an ad for one of our 3-day workshops. And here is what it came up with, okay? So Slide 1 was the introduction. Picture of a kangaroo holding a sign that says Total FB Success 3-Day Workshop. G'day, mate. Welcome to the Total FB Success 3-Day Workshop, the ultimate Facebook marketing shindig. Slide 2 was picture of a koala holding a smartphone with a Facebook app open. Total FB Success is like a koala hug for your Facebook marketing. We'll help you master Facebook marketing with our comprehensive workshop that's designed for Aussies just like you. What picture of a group of people having a barbecue in a backyard? At the 3-day workshop, you'll learn everything from creating and optimizing a Facebook page to running effective Facebook ads. We'll even teach you how to analyze your Facebook data like a true blue Aussie. Then we've got a picture of people at the beach on who should attend. Whether you're a business owner, marketer, or just a beach-loving social media enthusiast, this workshop is perfect for anyone who wants to take their Facebook marketing skills to the next level. So come on down and join us for a surf, mate. And then what you'll get, and a picture of a box of Tim Tams. As an attendee, you'll get access to all 3 days of the workshop, comprehensive workshop materials and resources, opportunities to connect with other attendees, and a certification of completion. Oh, and did we mention we'll have plenty of Tim Tams on hand? And for the register now, picture of koala again holding a sign that says register now with a big smile, because we've always seen koalas smile, haven't we? Don't be a drongo and miss out on this incredible opportunity to improve your Facebook marketing skills. Register now at theTotalFBSuccess.com before we fill up faster than a sausage sizzle at a footy game. And the conclusion is we've got a kangaroo this time holding a sign that says, "Thank you, mate. Thanks for considering the Total FB Success. We hope to see you at the workshop where you'll learn to be a true blue Facebook marketing champ." And that is a perfect ad that we should be running to Aussies. So that's what ChatGPT came up with. We did put a bit of humour in there and that, but we've actually written a few ads, asked ChatGPT a few times to write ads for an Australian audience. This is just one of them, but most of them are pretty similar to this. So don't do that. Hopefully, these things have helped you, the difference between if you're advertising to Australia, New Zealand, US, other countries and so on. Hopefully you won't make those mistakes and you'll be able to go forth and make lots of money from all the countries or tons of money from all the countries when you're running your Facebook ads. If you did, enjoy this episode and got a lot out of it, you want to, hear more about how you can use Facebook and AI to really grow your business, then make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast channel, that you follow me on all my socials. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you did like this episode, can you give me a 5? And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining me. If this episode helped you get your business one step closer to the top of your niche, then I'd love your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to subscribe on your favourite platform too. Don't let your journey end here. Connect with me and my community of like-minded female entrepreneurs at Kerry Fitzgibbon on social platforms. I look forward to helping you build your business.